Hey guys, ViscoseCone24 here, bringing you a real quick redstone video. Today I'm going to be showing you all this. It is my super compact 7x7 double cave door. As you can see, it all closes. When I go on over to the back side, you can see it looks the exact same as the front. And when I go back on over to the front side and flick the lever again, you can see it also all opens. It's not the fastest, but the sides are in sync, and the top is much faster than it could have been. I tried my hardest to keep the top as quick as possible, even with the weird sequence, which I'll be explaining later. This thing is 13 blocks wide, 13 blocks tall, and 11 blocks deep, so it has a volume of 1,859 blocks. This is the smallest I've ever been able to make, and smaller than I ever thought I would even be able to make at all. It is only 2 blocks of wiring from either wall, so you can see 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. This is actually adapted from the single-sided version, which I made not too long before this one. This thing has the exact same height and width and pretty much the exact same logic and layout. There are a few key differences which I'll be showcasing and explaining while I go through the layout and all the wiring. You can see here when I go on over to the backside, this is the single-sided version, and this does give you a chance to see the interesting layout I used for the quad. It's very, very similar to the one that I used for the 7x7 funnel door, which I made a showcase video and explanation video on not too long ago. Maybe about a week or so by the time I post this. But yeah, I'll be explaining the differences between those two doors when I get onto the layout. So you can see it also all opens. This one is a bit faster than the double-sided version, and again, I'll be showing why that is later in the video. But yeah, with all that out of the way, this is 13 blocks wide, 13 blocks tall, and 6 blocks deep. So this has a volume of 1,014 blocks. This is tied for the current smallest single-sided, although the current smallest single-sided doesn't use slime, and it's actually really, really smart. I guess I can leave links to images of it in the description if you want to look at it. I don't think there are any videos, but yeah, it's really, really smart. This is just my slime version. So yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get into the explanation part of the video, because there's a lot to go over. So the first thing I'm going to do is show the logic for the top. I've already shown this sort of quadruple piston extender setup in the 7x7 funnel door explanation, but for those of you who haven't seen it, and also so I can explain some small differences, I'm going to be covering it anyways. So first thing that happens, just like the 7x7 funnel door, is that activates, and we fold this in. But here's the first difference. On the 7x7 funnel door, this had to be given a 4-tick pulse to leave behind that piston, but in this door, you can just straight up activate this thing right off the bat because of the lack of blocks here and here. There's a lot less blocks for this quadruple to be moving, and therefore it can have an easier extension sequence. Pulse that, and then the redstone block storage is pretty much the exact same. Have that thing activate first, then this, then that. And there we go. It's powered this block here, and we now have our middle block in place. Then for the retraction, starts off pretty much the same way. You activate that, then that, power, depower, depower. Then we can start doing the retraction, just like so. There we go. Then we need to refire this, and then flatten that. And that is the top quad completely finished with its extension and retraction sequences. Again, not too much different, but for those of you who hadn't seen, and also to explain the small difference, that's why I covered that. And now onto the triple piston extenders on the sides, because there is actually a decent bit to show and explain here. So now onto these side wiring. So as you can see here, it looks a little bit weird, and it may even look familiar because I've been using this little setup here a little bit more often now. On the sides of the 7x7 funnel door, for example, I had a similar triple piston extender setup. And so what I did was, first thing that happens is, well, that powers, and I'll be explaining why that is necessary. So this thing powers that pressure plate, then that powers this piston, deactivating that torch, pulsing this observer, giving this sticky piston a 1-tick pulse, so it will extend. And as we can see, once it's extended, that slime right there has grabbed onto that block, meaning that by the time this sticky piston will be trying to retract, it'll be trying to retract a piston head. And piston heads can't be retracted, so it's just sort of forced to leave behind all its blocks. This forces the reliability of that 1-tick pulse, and I've been using that a lot more often now. And then obviously that gets powered by the plate, but at the same time, this sticky piston, or just normal piston right here, will have been deactivated, letting that torch turn on, meaning that this piston gets powered, and that dust, and there it is. It's extended out 2 times. To get in the third extension for the triple, just activate that and have something running into there. And there we go. It is extended out 3 blocks, and you can see a little bit of a chunk of the cave door design there. For the retraction, deactivate those 2 things first. Then we deactivate this, that, and then this gets a repulse once that observer, or once that torch turns back on. And there we go. Flattening is handled separately. And so, yeah, that is how these sides work for the single-sided version. And this worked out just fine, and it's actually pretty fast, as you can see here. The extension is pretty fast, and both triple piston extenders are pretty close in terms of their timings. And then the opening is also pretty fast. They're relatively close in terms of their timings, and while they are off, with this one starting first by a lot, and that one finishing last by a lot, it's not the biggest difference, and it still functions just fine. Now on to the changes that I had to make. And so let me really quickly get rid of this and set it up so that it will look like the single-sided version. There we go. So if I had designed this in the image of the single-sided version, I would have put together something like this, right? And this looks pretty familiar. Got the 2 sticky pistons, or normal pistons, torch, 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 and then the dust on the obsidian. And it will work just fine in the open state. Let me really quickly flatten this just in case of push limit issues. There we go. So it will just work. It will work just fine when the door is open, but the second you power it, extension will work. Depower it, and nothing will happen. The reason for this is, this dust on that obsidian has just powered that piston, locking that torch, meaning that this system can now no longer be turned off. These things are completely inaccessible unless you were to extend the backside of the door. There we go, just like that. And so that is why I had to change up the way that it looked. The way that I decided to go about this was by putting a sticky piston facing up with a redstone block on its face right there. And as you can see, that locks both of those, meaning that I didn't have to change the inputs to the top. And it also gets the first extension for our bottom triple. Of course, now these pistons here are now going to be the first ones extending. So this did mean that I had to completely overhaul how I did the logic on the bottom here. But I think it was worth it because this now is able to be made in single-sided, and it's also entity-less. This design right here uses no entities whatsoever. And so if that's something that you were looking for, this is entity-less, and you can use the exact same method on the backside here to make an entity-less single-sided version. Alright, I'm back. Unfortunately, my game crashed, but an unfortunate side effect of this entity-less version of the sides is that it is a little bit slower in the opening. As you can see here, the closing is pretty much the same, but on the opening, these bottom triples are able to retract well before these top ones even begin retracting, and that does add a little bit of input delay to the top. The reason for this is, as you'll notice here, this does handle the first extension, but it also must handle the last retraction of those triples. So this sticky piston right here, which is the input to the top, has to wait until that piston and that piston have both retracted to there. So I had to add in a lot of input delay, and in fact, there's a lot of input delay anyways because the signal is snaking through this torch tower right here. It goes through that 2-tick, and yeah, right there you can see. Unfortunately, it is broken a little bit, but that should fix it. So there's one last thing that I wanted to break down, and I'm actually surprised that I forgot about it. I hadn't even built a demo for it. I'm recording this separately after recording everything else, but I wanted to showcase the logic behind the bottom wiring. And so first things first, I'm just going to show you what of the bottom actually needs to be filled in. So I'm going to block off everything with obsidian. Some of these pistons get powered separately, even with the obsidian blocking off the slime. And so I'm just going to cover up everything so you can get a good view of what needs to be filled in. It's a very, very weird shape. We need 1 triple piston extender, 3 double piston extenders, and then 1 single piston extender to finish off this door. So again, a very, very weird shape, and that is why the bottom layout looks so weird. Also, I'll be explaining why that logic is the way it is with all the redstone blocks being pushed up. So that is what this accomplishes. So keep in mind, what we need is a triple piston extender and 3 doubles and a single with this shape. So I went for a method that is pretty similar to the bottom of the 7x7 funnel door. And in fact, you might even recognize it from right here. What I've done is I have added a sticky piston onto the back of a slime extender in order to push up an extra block. So if I have a slime double piston extender like here, I add this piston and it will now become a triple. And then these extra pistons here, I'll be showing why they're there as well. So the first thing that happens is we have to power this block, powering that piston and this redstone block sticky piston pusher. Reason for this is, or that piston specifically, is if I were to try and power this double piston extender as it is now, you can see it wouldn't be able to move at all. The reason for this is, it is trying to push currently 13 blocks, which is exactly too much. So, by powering this, we move that sticky piston and its block off of the slime, allowing this thing to push up. And, as you can see, now that it's pushed up, two things have happened. Well, one, it's pushed up, and then two, both of these sticky pistons have just gotten powered. If you can't see it yet, these two right here are the side doubles in our weird looking setup. So, now that we've established that, we can get in the final extension, and there it is. We've got the 3 doubles, 1 single, and 1 triple. Very, very weird looking layout, but it does get the job done. Now, the first thing that needs to happen for the retraction is we deactivate this, letting that depower. Then we pull this down, and as you can see, it has done two things. It's brought this down and made it repower, so it will grab its block and pull it down. But then it has also slid the slime into place so that it can grab on to these 2 sticky pistons. Now, what we need to do in order to make it so that these 3 sticky pistons can all be pulled down with the slime is repower all of our redstone block extenders, like you saw. So now that they've all retracted, they can all be pulled down by the slime, and we can get in the final retraction of our slime double. Then all of these can depower again. And the way that I opted to do these front 2 stickies is by powering them through the block that needs to be flattened, just like so. I'm going to really quickly open this up so you can see. Yeah. And if you didn't get a good enough view, I'll really quickly reset it. Just like that. It was a very, very convenient way of of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, I guess you could say. And then this thing right here is just powered separately. So that is the logic for the bottom. It's very, very weird, but of course the shape that we needed, as you can see, was very weird. So weird problems require weird solutions. And yeah, that's all for the explanation. Now on to the outro that I already recorded. So yeah, that's just about all I wanted to say for this door. Hope you enjoyed the real quick explanation video. But yeah, that's just about it. I'm ViscosComb24, and I'll see you next time.